The sky above the Pacific was still quiet that morning, too quiet for what was about to unfold. It was December 7th, 1941, the day that would burn itself into history. Aboard the mighty USS Enterprise, two SBD Dauntless dive bombers sat poised on the deck, engines humming with restrained fury. Lieutenant Clarence Dickinson stood by his aircraft, adjusting his gloves as the salty wind whipped against his face. His wingman, Ensign McCarthy, gave him a half-smile through the cockpit glass. Admiral William Halsey's orders were clear: fly to Pearl Harbor. What awaited them, none of the men could have imagined. "Let's make it a clean run, Lieutenant," McCarthy radioed. Dickinson chuckled. "You just keep up, kid." Moments later, the roar of engines split the morning calm as the two Dauntlesses launched into the endless blue. Their destination home, or so they thought. As they soared closer to Oahu, Dickinson noticed a column of dark smoke twisting into the clouds ahead. He frowned. "Looks like someone's burning the fields," he muttered. "Army's gonna catch hell for that mess." But the illusion shattered in an instant. Black puffs of anti-aircraft fire erupted in the sky. Explosions dotted the horizon. The base was under attack. The radio crackled with confusion and static. Then Zeros! 2 on your 6! Out of the billowing smoke, 2 Japanese Zeros screamed toward them, sunlight glinting off their wings. Dickinson barely had time to react before the air was filled with tracer fire. The Dauntless wasn't built for dogfights. It was heavy, deliberate, a bomber, not a dancer. But the fight had already come to them. McCarthy broke left hard, banking under Dickinson in a desperate roll. "Break, break!" Dickinson shouted. The Zeros fired again, lines of fire cutting through the air. Bullets missed Dickinson by inches, but found McCarthy's aircraft instead. The Dauntless shuddered as shells tore through its fuselage, black smoke trailing behind. "McCarthy, pull up!" "You're hit!" No response. Behind Dickinson, his gunner Miller swung the rear turret around, eyes locked on the enemy. "Coming in hot," Miller yelled, pulling the trigger. The twin .30 caliber machine guns roared, spitting fury at the pursuing Zeros. The Japanese fighters streaked past, impossibly fast. Dickinson dove, pulling negative Gs as his stomach twisted in freefall. The Zeros looped around again. "They're coming back," Miller shouted. Dickinson lined them up through the gun sight and fired, but his rounds sailed wide. The Zeros were too fast. Then, through the chaos, Dickinson saw McCarthy's plane trailing fire. Flames licked at the fuselage. "McCarthy's going down." A parachute burst open, a single white bloom against the black smoke. But only one. There was no time to mourn. More Zeros were inbound, 4, maybe 5. The sky above Pearl had become a storm of metal and fire. Dickinson twisted the stick, throwing the Dauntless into evasive turns. Bullets punched holes through the wings. Miller, reloading, kept firing bursts toward the enemy. "I think I got one," Miller shouted as a Zero burst into flames and spiraled downward. But the rest pressed on, relentless. The Dauntless shook violently. Warning lights flashed. "Miller, you still with me?" "Sir, I'm dry." "That's all 6 cans of ammo." The pit in Dickinson's stomach deepened. His aircraft was bleeding oil and the controls were sluggish. Smoke filled the cockpit, then a deafening crack. The Dauntless lurched sideways, caught in an uncontrollable spin. "Miller, jump!" Dickinson yelled. "Get out now!" He fought the controls, kicking at the rudder, but nothing responded. The plane was done. Frantically, Dickinson ripped off his harness and reached for the radio to report their position, but the cord refused to come free. With both hands, he yanked hard and snapped it in 2. Then he threw himself out into the open air. The wind tore at him, spinning his body wildly. The ground rushed up fast. He found the ripcord and pulled with all his strength. The parachute burst open with a jolt and the world slowed. Below him, his aircraft slammed into the ground in a fiery explosion. When Dickinson landed, he tore off the chute and looked around. A lonely field stretched to the horizon. Smoke curled from the wreckage nearby. "Miller," he whispered. But there was no answer. Back aboard the USS Enterprise, chaos reigned. Reports from Pearl Harbor were grim. Ships aflame, airfields destroyed, thousands dead. Admiral Halsey paced the bridge, fists clenched. "All hands to battle stations," he barked. This means war. When Dickinson finally made it to Ford Island, he reported for duty, still shaken but determined. He didn't even mention that he'd been shot down, just requested another aircraft. His new orders were simple: patrol the waters, find the enemy. But for Dickinson, this was more than duty. It was personal. The memory of Miller's last scream, the sight of McCarthy's burning plane, those images burned deep. He wanted vengeance. By the time the Enterprise returned to Pearl, Halsey had only one command: find them and shoot on sight. For days, the Enterprise prowled the Pacific, its planes flying endless patrols. Dickinson was always first to volunteer, scanning the waves below, searching for any trace of the enemy. Then, 3 days after the attack, a call came over the radio. Contact. Enemy submarine spotted on the surface. Far below, the dark outline of a Japanese I-70 submarine moved sluggishly across the ocean, its crew exposed as it recharged its batteries. The first American bomber dove, releasing a 1,000-pound bomb. The explosion sent water towering into the air, but the submarine remained afloat. Damaged but alive, missed. It's still moving. The submarine's crew scrambled for an emergency dive. They had 90 seconds to disappear beneath the waves. Get another flight in the air, came the order. On deck, Dickinson's Dauntless was fueled and armed. A new gunner climbed aboard, young, nervous. Dickinson simply nodded. "You stick close, kid," he said. "And keep your head down." The Dauntless roared off the deck, climbing high into the clear Pacific sky. The ocean below shimmered like glass. Minutes later, a lookout's voice cut through the radio.
"There she is."
"Submarine spotted dead ahead." Dickinson's heart pounded as he saw the black shape slicing through the waves. It was the I-70. His hands tightened around the controls. "This is Sail 4, he radioed. "Have sighted the submarine. Commencing attack." He armed his bomb and pushed the nose forward. The Dauntless tilted into a steep dive, screaming toward the sea. Below, the submarine crew scrambled, manning deck guns and shouting orders. "Enemy aircraft incoming." "Open fire!" Streams of tracers erupted from the sub's deck, reaching for the Dauntless like fiery fingers. "Hold steady," Dickinson shouted, ignoring the bullets ripping past. His gunner fired short bursts in return, but their small guns were no match for the wall of fire below. The altimeter spun wildly. 5,000 feet, 4,000, 3. The ocean filled the windscreen. Now or never. Bomb away. He released the payload and pulled back hard. The Dauntless groaned as G-forces slammed through it. Below, the bomb whistled down, then struck just off the submarine's bow. The explosion threw a column of water into the sky. The deck gunners vanished in the blast. The I-70 shuddered violently. "Did we get her?" the gunner yelled. Dickinson circled around, eyes fixed on the scene below. Black smoke curled from the submarine's hull. Oil slicks spread across the surface, but the sub still floated. "Effect uncertain," Dickinson reported, frustration lacing his voice. Then the I-70 began to submerge, slipping beneath the waves. The ocean stilled, leaving only a dark stain of oil. "Damn it," Dickinson whispered. He kept circling, staring at the patch of sea where it had vanished. For a moment there was nothing. Then, a violent eruption. A surge of bubbles and debris blasted through the water. Pieces of the submarine broke the surface. The oil slick grew thicker, spreading fast. The I-70 was gone. Dickinson exhaled, his grip loosening on the controls. The radio crackled. "Submarine destroyed." "Good work, Sail 4. Relief washed through the cockpit. The gunner whooped behind him. "This one was for you, Miller," Dickinson whispered. As the Dauntless banked away, the Pacific shimmered in the sunlight, now calm again, as if nothing had happened. But beneath those waves lay the wreck of the first large Japanese vessel sunk in the war. For the men aboard the Enterprise, it was a small victory in a sea of loss. For Dickinson, it was closure. He had avenged his fallen friends. Back on deck, Halsey met him with a rare nod of approval. "Good work, Lieutenant. The fight's just begun." Dickinson climbed out of his plane, boots hitting the steel deck with a heavy thud. He looked out over the endless blue horizon, knowing this was only the beginning of a long, bloody road. The sun dipped toward the sea, casting the Enterprise in gold light. The Pacific was quiet again, but everyone aboard knew it wouldn't last. For Dickinson, the war had become personal. He had seen his friends die, watched his skies burn, but he had also struck back. And somewhere in that calm sea, the wreck of the I-70 rested silently, a reminder that vengeance had wings,